Hi everyone, it's Danny. Today we're going to discuss about how to promote root growth on a sick orchid. Many of you still ask me about root production in general on a sick orchid. The most common illness with orchids is the loss of roots due to root rot and suffocation of the roots and so on. So already I will tell you my method and what I think promotes root growth on an orchid. Okay, let's get one thing out of the way. I know there are a lot of products that presumably promote root growth, but I have a little bit of a problem with them. Say you have an orchid that does not have any roots, it just has tiny little stumps of roots. How does an orchid that doesn't really have roots absorb the water in which you added that root boosting thingy? It's not a stem, it's not like a cutting that you cut and you put in rooting hormone and then you plant. It doesn't have any access of actually absorbing that moisture. It doesn't have roots, then doesn't have a cut that can actually absorb that moisture. So that's my main issue. If you're gonna add those, how are you gonna make your orchid actually absorb the moisture? Now, I don't think leaves will absorb any of that, or if they will, it's just gonna be in a very, very low quantity. It certainly does not do the good job that a root does. So that's the first issue. Why would I use those root boosting products if my orchid does not have any roots? Second of all, I don't really have so many products available in my area, so I just had to do without them. And I had very good results. So I'm not saying those products do not help. Maybe your orchid has one root and it can absorb that substance. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I don't have experience with it. I'm just saying you can actually do without it in most cases. Of course, there are orchids which are harder to save due to various reasons, and I did make a video on the subject, which you can check out in the description of this video. But yeah, in most cases, if an orchid is not virused, it has a good immune system. In most cases, if it's savable, it will be saved without those products. Alrighty, so now let's get to my method. Now, in my experience, the number one thing that promotes some root growth with an orchid is moisture. I know some sources say that the drier you keep an orchid, the more it is prone to producing roots. I find that to be quite wrong, and I'm not sure where this idea. I do find that moisture does induce or promote some root growth, and I'll tell you why. Now, little tiny roots will start to appear on your sick orchid eventually. So if they have moisture in the air right next to it, or even moisture touching it, that root will continue to grow. The tip will not dry out. If, however, you keep your orchid very, very dry, the root tip that just emerged might actually dry off because of the lack of moisture. Pretty logical. And I did have this happen in my experience with some other orchids. If there wasn't enough moisture right next to the root would actually deplete itself somehow and it would dry off and die. This being said, with a sick orchid that doesn't have too many roots or no roots at all, I like to provide as much moisture as I can, and I can do this in two ways. Now, the first way, which I actually find the best at the moment, I discovered it this summer, is to actually add a layer of sphagnum moss on the top. Sphagnum moss will retain more water and it will make the close area here very moist or humid. So the new roots that will develop, even if they don't necessarily touch the sphagnum moss just yet, will have quite a lot of humidity around them. When they go into the sphagnum moss, they will start to absorb water, and as they make their way through the pot and in the bark or whatever mixture you're using, the top layer will still be moist because of the sphagnum moss. It will not dry out so fast. It will keep moisture inside as well. And the root will start to grow, continue to grow actually, and possibly branch out, and everything will be okay. The root will not suffer from dehydration. And as you can see here, I have a Callia orchid in sphagnum moss. It's not only sphagnum moss, it's a mixture between sphagnum moss and bark. And Callia orchids don't necessarily like sphagnum moss too much. They like to be very airy. But in this case, this orchid did not have one single root, and I'm not sure if I have a picture of it. If I do, I will add it somewhere here, but I really am not sure if I have it. But as you can see, the addition of sphagnum moss and the added moisture actually promoted some root growth, and right now I'm having quite a few roots growing inside the pot here. They do enjoy this moisture, and I am telling you, this orchid was absolutely horrible when I got it, but the moisture was present at all times, and now it's just a matter of time until this orchid will get some nutrients, will get bigger and bigger again, and eventually this orchid is absolutely savable from no roots to actually a pretty good health status right now. Okay, the second way. Let's say you don't have sphagnum moss or you don't necessarily like to use it. You can actually perform a rescue in bark media as well. Just keep in mind it needs to stay moist for a longer period of time, so you have to actually water it more often. Now, the main drawback with bark is that because the orchid does not have too many good roots right at the bottom of the pot, this portion will stay very, very moist, while this portion will get very, very dry. One thing you can do is actually spray some water on the top, possibly every day, to keep it moist, and only water the entire pot when the moisture from the bottom dries as well. You are safe then to water the whole pot because everything will be dry. So if you don't like to use sphagnum moss, you just want to use bark, that's totally fine. I had a ton of orchids saved with bark as well. Just keep in mind the top layer needs to be moist. So if you spray it every day with just a little bit of water to wet all the portion, all the surface of the top media, you're perfectly fine. When the roots start to grow and they become quite healthy and you have quite a good root system, they will actually benefit quite a lot from a high nitrogen fertilizer, or at least a balanced fertilizer like a 20-20-20. Now, nitrogen acts or plays a very important role in the production of vegetative growth like pseudobulbs, shoots, leaves, roots, and all of that, not necessarily in the formation of a flower spike. So at this point you can say your orchid is saved. It will not look super beautiful. It needs to go through its period of adjusting again, of making her resources of energy again, and so on. So the new growths will probably be smaller, but they will get bigger and bigger as the root system grows and can sustain the whole of the plant. This again was an orchid that was rootless, absolutely. I received it from my friend, and right now it's doing quite well. And for this orchid, even if it's a cattleya, I did use the layer of sphagnum moss on top. So I think this works pretty well. Of course, like with all things, you need to do things with measure. Don't keep everything super soggy and moist all of the time. Ventilation is still very important, but I found the key with orchids is moisture and ventilation at the same time. And the thingy with the holes on the sides of the pot works absolutely great for me. Works even with the mixture of sphagnum moss and bark. This is actually perfect for me. Even for cattleya orchids, which are known not to like excessive moisture and to get root rot pretty easy, but I don't have any problems, and this actually saved quite a lot of my plants. As I said, not all orchids can be saved due to various reasons, due to their degree of damage and so on. So this will not ensure 100% success rate. I don't think any method can ensure that. It really depends on the orchid. But trust me when I say that the number one thing that promotes root production is moisture. You just need to know how to apply it, and I really hope this video gave you some ideas. This is just my opinion on things. It's how I do things, and I don't really have a lot of mortality in my plants, and I did save quite a lot of plants. So alrighty, thank you for suggesting this video, thank you for the questions and inspiring me to do these videos, and I really hope I can help you. If you have more suggestions or questions for me, just leave me a comment and I'll try to make a video. Don't forget to subscribe to watch even more of my videos, and yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!